I'm Nikki and welcome to the Preppy Possum. Today I'm going to lead you step by step through a painting. Let's rock and roll. Today we're going to paint like 3 little pots with some plants in there. So say home sweet home, but you can put whatever you want on there. But I'm going to start with like a good drawing brush and dry it off. And like a good color to draw with. So I'm going to grab like some really light gray and skip up just a smidge from the bottom just to give yourself a little bit of room, and we're going to throw a little line that just goes across. I'm just going to stop short of the edge by just a smidge on both sides. And then I'm just going to do a little line that kind of angles out. So over here on the right hand side I'm going to lean it to the right a little bit. And over here on the left, I'm going to lean it to the left just a smidge. And then I'm going to go ahead, just kind of as a reference point, and throw us a little line across the top to throw like the little tray that's going to hold all 3 of our little pots together. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and throw our 3 pots. So you might have to tweak these a little bit. Let's see. Should we just go all in and go for the middle? Why not? So let's skip towards the center, and I'm just going to angle these lines down and in just a little bit, but we can always come back and tweak them, so don't be scared. It's just paint. So we'll get that on there. And then at the top, I'm going to throw a line that droops just a smidge. And you want the top little part of your plant, your pot, to come out just a little bit further. And then I'm going to throw one right next to it on both sides. And I might have to come back and fatten these things up just to make sure they're all the same size. But we'll do the same thing. You want to throw a droopy line across all of them. And just let it hang over the side by a little bit. Trying to make sure I have my pots about all the same size, so y'all at home won't think, oh, she has 2 big pots and a teeny tiny one. But we can come back and tweak them if they're a little cray-cray. All right, let's see, that's a pretty good start. They're not exact, but it's a painting. So I think that's a good first layer on there, hopefully. Might need to make this one a little bit bigger still. All right, so we kind of have the first part of our pot, so let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. I'm going to grab a little bit bigger brush, it's like a number 8 or something, and dry it off and grab some white. And I'm going to start by throwing just a little bit of white through the middle just to get some paint on there of all of the pots and our little tray. So I'm just going to throw a little bit through the middle of all of them. And the top part. But once you get a smidge to the middle of everything, then you can take it out all the way to the edge. And don't worry that your gray kind of blends in with the white, because that's kind of what we're going for anyway. And don't worry if your pots are kind of running together like mine. We'll come back and trim them out. All right, so we have us a layer on all of our pots. So let's go ahead and wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. And let's grab like a drawing brush again, so like a number 4, and dry it off. And we're gonna grab some black and gray. And now we're just gonna kind of trace around everything. That way we can come back with a big brush. Skinny a little bit through there. So we kind of have them traced around. So now let's wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and grab a huge brush. And we'll just grab more of that black with a little gray, so black and gray, dark gray. And we're just gonna throw a thick layer through the rest of our background. let that one dry for just a sec. So just kind of wipe it off and chunk it in the water. Let's grab like a drawing brush again, so like a number 4. And I'm just gonna do a second layer on the background. So I'm just gonna use that black and gray and kind of hit the little areas first. And then we'll go back with the big brush and hit all that again. Just so I don't chop off the pots when we come back with that big brush. And I'm kind of making sure I left a little smidge of space in between our little pots. But I'm just going to kind of do like a thin outline, just like we did before when we outlined them. That way I can come back with a big brush and cover some ground. All right, so you have it all outlined. Let's wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab that huge brush again and dry it off. And we're gonna use those same colors. And now just kind of throw you another thick layer in through the background. All right, so we have us a layer on our background. Let's just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. All right, let's grab like a number 6 or so and dry it off. And we're gonna grab, let's start out with like some medium greens just to get like a little layer on there. And we're gonna start with the middle one. And I'm just gonna do a bumpy top because then I'm gonna kind of make it look like the top of moss. So I'm just gonna kind of curve it in. And we'll have some bigger bumps and then just kind of make sure it goes into the pot. All right, that's probably a good start. And then I'm just gonna grab some paint and fill it in with a layer. I know it's like a little too bright right now, but it's just to get a little layer of paint on there. And I might kind of bump up the edge just a little. All right, so now we have a layer of paint on that one. So then let's go ahead, I'm gonna grab a little bit lighter green and I'm gonna go ahead and throw some little spikes on this one. So I'm gonna have them start kind of smaller at the base and then they're gonna get skinnier as they come up. And we'll come back and thicken it up, so don't worry that it's like a little see-through. But always kind of go up with your stroke and that'll keep the thinnest part towards the top. And we'll throw one kind of going off the edge over here. Because you just want some kind of leaning a few different directions. All right, so we have a little bit of start to some light colors. And then let's even grab some dark green and throw like a few darker ones in there. So you don't have to wipe out your brush. Just kind of grab some dark green, because we'll come back and add like more darks and lights on all of these. We're just getting a little start. Got a little bit of my all right. I think that's a pretty good start to our little crazy one over here. While I have that dark in my brush, I might add like a few streaks. And then I'm gonna go ahead and, while this one's still wet, I might grab some like sagey green and some light green and kind of throw some little bumps on there. So I'm just gonna do like little patches of moss, and then I can come back and kind of throw the dark, like the shadows around it. All right, so we have the first part of that, first part of our little plant over on the right. Now let's wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab like a number 4 size brush, just so it'll be a little bit smaller, and dry it off. And now we're gonna start our little plant over here. And for this one, I'm just gonna do a bunch of little circles. So you want some big, some little. You can kind of start wherever. I'll probably just kind of start in the middle. And I'll come back and make some light and some dark. So for right now, just kind of go for it. But I'll have some little circles. I'm going to kind of skip around because you'll get better at it. So I would kind of skip when you're throwing your circles. I'm gonna do kind of like a lot of little ones that hang off to the edge. So I'm going ahead and throw in some like little ones. just don't want to start getting them like all in a row. So make sure you have some that kind of overlap. And then when we come back, we can make them look kind of more separate. And throw some darker ones in there. I might go ahead and throw like a few dark ones. But kind of the more circles, the better. Like you can have a few spaces in between, but like all here through the middle, I would have a bunch. And then make sure you have some funky ones. So I might throw like a few more little ones on the edges, just to be hanging down into the pot. But I think that's a bunch of circles. That's a good start, because then we'll let those dry for a sec. So let's let our plants dry for a second, wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab a teeny tiny brush. So let's grab a teeny tiny brush, so like a number 1, and dry it off. And we'll grab some dark gray, a little bit dark gray. You can even have a little light with it. And we'll go ahead and throw like our little shadow. So right underneath where like the top part. And don't worry if you get thick with this, because we're going to come back to our pots and add to it. All right, and then let's go ahead and wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and let's grab like a number 4 or something again and dry it off. And now let's grab kind of the 2 grays together, so like a light gray and a dark gray, and we're going to smudge a little bit of that on the sides. So I just want like a little bit of that coming in from my edges. This is where you can kind of clean up some edges too and make them bigger if you need to. But mainly just kind of throw it through the sides of your pots. So I'm going to throw a little bit through the left and the right of each one. Kind of helps them look more 3D. Whoops, a little bit on there. And then I'm even going to throw like just a little bit underneath those dark lines in a few places. And I'm going to throw a little bit of the gray like near the very bottom of our little tray, because there'd be a little bit of a shadow there too. And don't worry if you get like too thick when you're throwing this on here, because we'll come back and thin it up. All right, now let's kind of use that same brush, just kind of wipe it off, and let's grab just a teeny tiny bit of off-white with some light gray and white. So you just want just a smidge of off-white, and we'll throw just a little bit of that in through a few of our edges too, so like up through like the edges of your little top part of your pot. So kind of to the left and the right. And then you can even smear just a little bit kind of into the edge of that gray that we just threw on. And I'm going to do the same thing through like my other pots too. I'm going to throw just a little bit of that. And then the same thing, like towards the bottom, just kind of streak it. And then we'll streak like a little bit of the off-white, white, and gray through the little bottom part too. And then once you have that, you can kind of wipe off your extra paint and grab some bright white or mostly bright white. And then we'll just streak like a little bit of that back in to our pots. Just like through the middle. So that can kind of blend the off-white and the gray that you put on there. And then we can throw like a little bit more towards the top part of our little tray too if we need to thicken it up. But now I think we have a pretty good layer on our pots in our little holder. So we'll just wipe that one off and chunk it in the water. All right, now let's get our plants looking a little bit better. So let's grab a little bit of like a slimy limey, like a chartreuse green, maybe some sagey green with it, and we're gonna brighten up like a few of our little pieces of our plant. So I'm just gonna kind of thicken up a few pieces. And the more paint you put on these, the better. So just kind of like let it dry between layers. Don't be afraid to use a lot of paint. And then I'm gonna go back with like a little bit of dark and darken up a few of those. Got a little bit more paint on here, and then we can come back and add some more lights and darks. just because you don't want it to be too thin. All right, so we got some more paint on there. So now let's get our little moss looking better. So we'll use like dark green and a little bit of black. And we're gonna throw a little bit of that like in between all of our little bunches. And then throw like a little bit at the bottom too. So just kind of in between all your little sections. We're just throwing like some dark green with just a teeny tiny bit of black. All right, so we have the dark part of that. Now let's throw with it, while we have that dark green kind of color, let's throw a few of our circles on there with some really dark. So a few of our little penny shapes, even smaller than a penny. So get a few dark ones. And now let's get a few like brighter green ones, so you can just kind of dab a little bit of green. And then I'm gonna go ahead, while my dark edges, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to the moss too. So grab a little bit of that chartreusey green and light green, and let's go ahead and dab some. You just wanna load your brush, and we're gonna, I might have got a little too much paint there, so I'm just gonna use it and kind of spread it out on the other ones. But just kind of like load your brush with a lot of paint and just barely touch, just to give that like bumpy texture kind of look. So we got it a little bumpy. See how that dries, and then while we have the lighter green, we'll streak just a little bit more, some more streaks into our little pieces over here, just so we have a few little pieces of really light. And then I'll come back to my penny ones. I'll let those dry for a second. I might go ahead and write my little Home Sweet Home. So we'll wipe that one off, chunk it in the water, and grab the teeny tiny brush and dry it off. And just use the teeny tiny and the black. And we want to do like tall, skinny letters. So we'll use the teeny tiny and the black. And you just want to do like tall, thin letters. And don't worry like if you get a little wonky, because we can come back and thin it up. All right, so we got that, and then we'll do a sweet. Now I'm gonna probably do them all like more kind of to the left. Might have made my eaves a little too wide, but all right, so home sweet home. All right, home sweet home. So now we'll let that dry for just a second. Let's get our little penny plant looking better. Because we got our words on there, they don't look too bad. So let's grab like a number 4 and dry it off. And I'm gonna grab even a little bit of blue with some green just to give it kind of a different color. And I'm gonna fill in a few of my little circles with that color. Let's see. Since it's really dry, I'll come back and smear some of the other colors in there with it. Just because, just like the other plants, like the more paint you put on there, the better it's gonna look. So like once it dries, then you can come back and put more. Let's go ahead and grab some more dark green. We'll just kind of hit our dark green ones again in a few places. Getting a little bit more wild, so that's good. Got us some lighter ones, and then you can even go back with like darker greens. But just a second layer on everything, I feel like kind of helps it once it's dry. Maybe even some really dark green, so some dark green with a teeny tiny bit of black. And we'll throw a couple really dark ones. So it's kind of just circles on top of circles until you get it kind of halfway how you like it. And you got to have some darks and lights for it to look good. So come back once you get a bunch of those lighter color ones. It helps to come back and throw some dark. But I think we got some dark going on there. Now, I'm just probably gonna touch up the top of that little, where I got some green on there. And then use that same one. I might add a few last little streaks through our little spiky plant. Darned if I didn't get a little bit more on there. So I'll just kind of clean that up real quick. Well, and then I got some black. I'll just mix it in a little bit. Grab some more white. Happy little accident. All right. Let's go ahead and sign this puppy. Then you can always come back once it's all the way dry and add stuff if you need to. But alrighty. And we have a home sweet home. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to check us out. We're on Cox Street in Asheboro. And be sure to check out our website, www.thepreppypossum.com.